I was folding tiny socks in the nursery when I heard her voice drift through the cracked door, sharp as a kitchen knife. The free housemaid is here again. So I can finally get my nails done. My hands froze mid-fold. The soft cotton of my grandson's onesie slipped from my fingers and pooled on the rocking chair like spilled milk. I stood there, 62 years old, heart thumping so loud I swear the baby monitor picked it up. The words weren't meant for me, but they landed square in my chest anyway. Free housemaid. That's what I was to her. Not mom, not auntie, not even Mrs. Tan. Just the help. I pressed my palm to the wall to steady myself, the cool plaster grounding me while everything inside tilted. The hallway smelled of baby powder and the lemon cleaner I'd used that morning, the one I bought in bulk because it was on sale and I knew she liked the scent. My knees creaked as I leaned closer to the door, careful not to let the floorboards betray me. Through the gap, I saw her on the phone, legs crossed on my couch, laughing like she hadn't just sliced me open. I thought of the nights I'd spent, rocking little Ethan to sleep so she could rest. The mornings I'd tiptoed into their kitchen at dawn to start the congee before she woke. The afternoons I'd spent scrubbing formula stains from her silk blouses because the dry cleaner was too expensive. All of it. Every wiped counter and folded blanket and lullaby hummed under my breath. Reduced to free housemaid. My reflection stared back at me from the nursery mirror. Graying hair pulled into a neat bun, apron still tied from making lunch, eyes wide like I'd seen a ghost. Maybe I had. The ghost of the woman I used to be before I moved into help, before I became invisible. I picked up the onesie, smoothed it against my thigh, and placed it carefully in the drawer. Then I walked out of the nursery, past the living room where she still chatted, and into the guest room that had become mine. I closed the door softly. No slam, no scene, just the quiet click of a lock I hadn't used in 2 years. Something in me shifted that day. Not anger, not yet. Just a cold, clear decision. I was done. The kettle clicked off just as the first light slipped through the lace curtains, pale gold on the linoleum I'd mopped the night before. I was already up, sleeves rolled, hair twisted into a knot with a pencil. The house smelled of ginger and yesterday's rice. I'd left a pot simmering low so breakfast would be ready when they stirred. My son Wei liked his congee soft enough to drink, and Sarah, my daughter-in-law, liked it with a drizzle of sesame oil and a pinch of white pepper. I knew these things the way I knew the creases in my own palms. I moved through the kitchen like a quiet tide. The fridge hummed. The baby monitor glowed green on the counter, Ethan still asleep, his little breath steady. I cracked 2 eggs into a bowl, whisked them with a fork until the yolks bled into the whites, then slid them into the hot pan. The sizzle was soft, almost polite. I flipped the omelet once, folded it, and set it on a warmed plate beside a bowl of cut fruit. Mango for Sarah, apple for Wei, banana for Ethan when he woke. I arranged the plates on the tray the way I'd done every morning for the past 18 months. Sarah's first, then Wei's, then the baby's high-chair spoon tucked under a napkin. Footsteps overhead. Wei's heavy tread, then the lighter patter of Sarah descending the stairs in her slippers. I wiped my hands on the apron I'd sewn from an old curtain, blue checks, faded now, and turned to greet them with the smile I'd practiced since the day they asked me to move in. "Morning, Ma," Wei said, voice thick with sleep. He kissed my cheek, the stubble on his jaw scratching softly. He smelled of the cedar soap I bought in bulk at the market. Sarah followed, phone already in hand, hair twisted into a messy bun that somehow looked expensive. "Smells amazing, Auntie," she said, not looking up. She used Auntie when Wei was around. When he wasn't, it was just hey, or nothing at all. I poured her coffee, 2 sugars, splash of oat milk, and set it beside her plate. She murmured thanks, eyes on her screen. We ruffled my hair like I was the child. "You're a saint, Ma. How do you do this every day?" I laughed, the sound small in my throat. "Practice," I said. "And love." That was true once. When Wei was small and his father was still alive, I'd wake before the roosters to pack his lunch. Rice, pork floss, a hard-boiled egg with a smiley face drawn in soy sauce. I'd walk him to the bus stop, his hand sticky in mine, and wave until the taillights disappeared. After his father passed, heart attack, sudden, no warning, I kept the routines. They were the only things that didn't break. When Wei married Sarah, I was cautious. She was beautiful, sharp, city-raised. Her parents lived in Vancouver and sent money instead of visits. At the wedding, she'd hugged me tight and whispered, "I've always wanted a mom like you." I believed her. When Ethan came, 6 pounds, red-faced, perfect, I believed her again when she said, "We can't do this without you." So I came. Left my little flat above the noodle shop, packed 2 suitcases and my slow cooker, and moved into the guest room with the slanted ceiling. I told myself it was temporary, just until Ethan slept through the night, just until Sarah finished her maternity leave, just until... The just until stretched like taffy. I became the rhythm of their days. I knew the exact temperature for Ethan's bottles, 98.6 degrees, sire, the brand of diapers that didn't leak, the lullaby that stopped his hiccups. I knew Sarah's cycle, when she'd snap about the laundry, when she'd cry in the shower. I knew Way's size when the baby cried at 3 a.m. and he had a presentation at 9. I told myself it was gratitude. The way Sarah's eyes softened when I handed her a warm towel after her shower. The way Way hugged me longer each night. The way Ethan's tiny fingers curled around my thumb like I was his whole world. But there were moments, small, sharp, that I tucked away like splinters. The time Sarah laughed at my accent when I mispronounced quinoa. The way she'd leave her coffee cup on the table for me to wash, even when the dishwasher was empty. The day she said, "Auntie, can you iron this?" I have a Zoom in 10, and didn't wait for an answer. I swallowed them. Told myself I was old-fashioned. That this was how young people were, busy, distracted. That I was lucky to be needed. The house itself helped. It was new, all clean lines and white walls, but I'd warmed it. I hung red lanterns in the foyer for luck, placed a jade plant on the windowsill, filled the fridge with Tupperware labeled in my careful handwriting, Mapo tofu, braised pork, winter melon soup. I sewed curtains for the nursery, yellow ducks marching in a row. Ethan's first word was Popo, my name in Cantonese, and Sarah clapped like I'd won a prize. I kept a routine. Wake at 5. Meditate for 10 minutes on the back porch, watching the sky shift from ink to pearl. Water the herbs, tie basil, mint, lemongrass. Start the rice cooker. Fold the laundry from the night before. By 7, the house breathed with me. Way worked long hours at the tech firm downtown. Sarah had gone back to her marketing job part-time from home. She'd set up a corner of the living room with a ring light and a backdrop that said, "Boss Babe." Between calls, she'd breastfeed Ethan, then hand him to me with a distracted smile. "You're a lifesaver, Auntie." I was. I didn't mind the work. My hands liked being busy. My heart liked being useful. But some nights, when the house was finally quiet and I sat in my room with a cup of chrysanthemum tea, I'd feel it, a hollow ache behind my ribs. Like I'd given away pieces of myself and no one noticed they were gone. Still, I told myself, this is family. This is love. This is what mothers do. I had no idea how wrong I was. The weekends were my favorite, even if they were the busiest. Saturday mornings, the farmer's market opened at 7, and I'd be there with my canvas tote, the one with the frayed strap I kept meaning to mend. The air smelled of wet earth and grilled sausages. I'd weave between stalls, greeting the vendors by name. Mrs. Chen for the bok choy, Mr. Patel for the mangoes that weren't too green. I'd haggle gently, my voice low, the way my mother taught me. $10 for 2 pounds of shrimp? $8.50, and I'll take the slightly bruised ones. They always gave in with a smile. Back home, I'd unload the bounty on the kitchen island, the marble cool under my palms. Ethan would be in his bouncer, kicking his legs, eyes tracking the colors of the bell peppers. Sarah would drift in around 9, still in her silk robe, hair tousled like she'd just stepped off a magazine cover. "Popo's got the good stuff," she'd say, popping a cherry tomato into her mouth. I'd swat her hand playfully. "Wash first. Wei would appear later, lured by the smell of garlic frying in the wok. He'd wrap his arms around me from behind, chin on my shoulder. "Marry me instead, Ma," he'd joke. Sarah would roll her eyes, but she'd laugh, and for a moment, the kitchen felt like the heart of something solid. I cooked like I was feeding an army, even though there were only 4 of us. Mapo tofu bubbling, chili oil slick on top, steamed fish with ginger and scallions, the flesh so tender it fell apart under the chopsticks. Stir-fried greens glossy with oyster sauce. I'd played everything family style, the way I'd done since Wei was small, and we'd eat at the dining table I'd sanded and stained myself. Ethan in his high chair, smearing rice on his cheeks. Sarah taking photos for her Instagram. Family feasts, blessed. Wei sneaking extra chili because Sarah hated the heat. After lunch, I'd clean while they napped. The dishwasher's hum, the soft clink of plates stacking. I'd wipe down the counters with a vinegar rag, the sharp smell cutting through the lingering garlic. Then I'd fold laundry in the living room, the TV on low, some cooking show Sarah liked. Ethan would wake first, and I'd carry him on my hip while I hung the tiny onesies on the drying rack, his warm weight anchoring me. Afternoons were for errands. Grocery runs, post office, the library where I'd pick up board books for Ethan. Sarah would hand me her dry cleaning with a sheepish grin. "You're going out anyway, right?" I'd nod, take the plastic-wrapped blouses, the tickets fluttering like white flags. At the cleaners, Mrs. Lopez would ask after the baby, and I'd show her photos, my chest swelling with pride. Evenings were softer. Way home by 6, tie loosened, eyes tired but bright when he saw Ethan. We'd eat leftovers, or I'd throw together fried rice with whatever was in the fridge. Sarah would bathe the baby while I pressed Way's shirts for the week, the iron hissing steam. Then story time. Me in the rocking chair, Ethan's head heavy on my chest, his hair smelling of Johnson's shampoo. I'd read in Cantonese first, then English, my voice dropping to a murmur as his eyelids fluttered. Bedtime was mine. I'd sit on the back porch with a cup of tea, the night air cool on my skin. The neighbors' lights winked through the trees. I'd think of my husband, how he used to smoke his pipe out here when the house was just ours. How he'd say, "You carry the world, Mei-Ling, but who carries you?" I'd smile into the dark. I was fine. I had purpose. Sundays were church, then dim sum with Way's cousins. I'd dress Ethan in the outfit I'd bought. Tiny suspenders, a bow tie that made him look like a little professor. Sarah would fuss with her hair, change outfits 3 times. In the banquet hall, the aunties would coo over the baby, pinch his cheeks. So fat, so lucky. Sarah would beam, but I'd catch her checking her phone under the table. Back home, I'd prep for the week. Chop vegetables, portion meat, label containers. Sarah would disappear into her office for work catch-up. Wei would play with Ethan on the living room rug, building block towers that the baby gleefully destroyed. I'd watch from the kitchen doorway, my heart full to bursting. There were cracks, sure. Sarah's sharp tongue when she was stressed. "Auntie, the bottles need sterilizing again." The way she'd leave her makeup brushes in the sink for me to rinse. The time she said, "We should hire a cleaner," and Wei laughed. "Why? We have Ma." I'd smiled, but something twisted inside. I told myself it was nothing, that I was sensitive, that this was the trade-off for being close to my grandson, for keeping my son's family whole. I'd lost my own parents young, my husband too soon. This noise, this chaos, this love was my reward. I kept a journal in my bedside drawer. Not every day, just when the ache got too loud. I'd write in neat characters. "Ethan smiled with 2 teeth today." Sarah said thank you without looking up. Wei hugged me for no reason. Little things. Proof that I mattered. The last entry before everything changed was simple. They need me. That's enough. I closed the journal, turned off the lamp, and slept the sleep of the righteous. I had no idea the ground was already shifting beneath my feet. It started with the laundry. I'd been doing their wash for so long that I knew the stains by heart. Ethan's formula spit up, yellow and sour-smelling. Sarah's foundation rings on the collar of her white blouses. Way's sweat along the underarms of his gym shirts. I sorted by color, by fabric, by urgency. Ethan's onesies first, then Sarah's silks, then Way's dress shirts for Monday. I'd hum while I worked, an old Teresa Teng song my mother used to play on scratchy vinyl. That Tuesday, I was in the laundry room off the kitchen, the dryer thumping like a heartbeat. Sarah had left for a branding meeting downtown, something about influencers and collagen water. She'd kissed Ethan's head, handed him to me still damp from his bath, and said, "You're the best, Auntie. I'll be back by 3. The clock on the wall read 9:17 a.m. I didn't mind. I'd planned to make red bean buns while he napped. I was folding Way's socks, matching the black ones with the tiny hole in the toe, when I noticed Sarah's yoga pants in the basket. Black Lululemon, the pair she wore 3 times a week. There was a white streak on the thigh, chalky like dried soap. I frowned. I'd washed these 2 days ago. I lifted them to my nose. Not soap, something sharper, like the clay mask she used on Sundays. I set them aside, kept folding. But the pants nagged at me. Sarah was meticulous about her activewear. She'd once returned a sports bra because the tag scratched her neck. Why wear dirty pants to yoga? I shook it off. Maybe she'd spilled something. Maybe the washer missed a spot. I added them to the next load anyway. Ethan woke cranky, cutting his first molar. I walked him around the living room, bouncing him gently, the way the pediatrician showed me. His cries were sharp, desperate. I warmed a bottle, tested it on my wrist, settled into the rocking chair. He latched on, eyes fluttering shut, tiny fist curled against my chest. The room smelled of talc and warm milk. Outside, the mailman's truck rumbled past. Sarah came home at 4:12, later than promised. Her cheeks were flushed, hair in a high ponytail that swung when she walked. "Traffic was murder," she said, kicking off her sneakers. She didn't look at the yoga pants draped over the laundry basket. Didn't ask about Ethan's tooth. Just grabbed her water bottle and disappeared upstairs. I finished the laundry, started dinner. Hainanese chicken rice, Way's favorite. The rice cooker hissed. I sliced cucumbers thin as paper, arranged them on a plate with chili sauce and dark soy. Ethan banged his spoon on the high chair, laughing at nothing. I laughed too, the sound surprising me. Way came home at 7, tie askew, eyes bloodshot from screens. "Smells like heaven," he said, kissing my cheek. Sarah drifted down in fresh clothes, makeup touched up. We ate. She talked about her meeting, some influencer with 1 million followers who wanted to collaborate. Way nodded, asked questions. I listened, wiped Ethan's chin. After dinner, I cleaned. Sarah helped for once, loading the dishwasher while humming. "You're quiet tonight, Auntie," she said. "Just tired," I lied. Later, in my room, I opened my journal. Sarah late. Yoga pants dirty. Ethan fussy. I stared at the words. They looked petty. I closed the book. The next clue came Thursday. I was in the nursery changing Ethan's diaper when Sarah's phone buzzed on the dresser. She'd left it charging, screen face up. I glanced over, habit from years of watching Way's phone for texts from girls. The preview read, "Can't wait to see you again. Same time?" My stomach dipped. J. No one in her contacts was just J. Her best friend was Jess, but she always used the full name with a heart emoji. Her boss was James, but he signed emails J. Carter. This was different, intimate. I finished diapering Ethan, snapped his onesie, and set him in the crib with his giraffe. The phone buzzed again. Another text. "Bring the red top. You looked insane, I didn't touch it." I'm not that kind of mother-in-law, but I stared at the screen until it went dark. The words burned into my retinas. Sarah came in 10 minutes later, breathless. "Forgot my phone," she said, snatching it. She didn't look at me. "Thanks for watching him. I've got a call." She left. I stood there, the giraffe's plastic eyes staring at me. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house creaked around me. I replayed the texts, the yoga pants, the late return. Little things, maybe nothing. But they stacked like bricks. Friday, I tested the waters. Sarah was in the kitchen, scrolling her phone while I pureed sweet potatoes for Ethan. "Good yoga class yesterday?" I asked, casual. She startled, looked up. What? Oh, yeah. Hot yoga. Sweaty. She laughed too loud. You wore those black pants, right? Found some clay on them. Mask, maybe? Her fingers tightened on her mug. Oh, yeah, I spilled some product. Clumsy. She changed the subject. Ethan sleep okay? I nodded. Let it go. But I started watching. The way she checked her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she'd smile at the screen, then glance around like a secret. The way she'd say, client lunch, but come home with no doggy bag, no receipt crumpled in her purse. I told myself I was paranoid, that I was the old woman seeing ghosts. That Way was happy. Ethan was thriving. The house ran smooth because of me. What did it matter if Sarah had a friend? A flirtation? Young people did that, but the splinters were digging deeper. Saturday, we went to the park. Ethan in the stroller, Way pushing, Sarah walking ahead in sunglasses too big for her face. I carried the diaper bag, the snacks, the sunscreen. At the playground, Sarah sat on a bench, legs crossed, texting. We chased Ethan on the slides. I watched her thumbs fly. A man jogged past, tall, bearded, earbuds in. Sarah looked up, waved. He waved back, slowed. Hey, you, he said, voice low. She laughed, stood, hugged him quick. Too quick. We didn't see. Busy catching Ethan at the bottom of the slide. My heart thudded. The man jogged off. Sarah sat back down, typing again. I pushed the stroller home in silence. That night, I wrote in my journal, something's wrong. I feel it in my bones. I didn't know how right I was. Sunday morning smelled of rain on the pavement. I woke before the birds, slipped into my slippers, and padded to the kitchen. The house was still asleep, the kind of quiet that feels holy. I put the kettle on, measured jasmine tea into the pot, and stood at the window watching droplets bead on the glass. My reflection stared back, eyes puffy from restless sleep, mouth set in a line I didn't recognize. I had decided to give Sarah the benefit of the doubt. One more day, one more chance to prove I was wrong. I would cook her favorite, steamed pork ribs with black bean sauce, and we would laugh about my silly worries over lunch. Mothers-in-law were famous for overthinking, weren't they? But the doubt had teeth now. While the tea steeped, I opened the fridge to check the ribs. A sticky note on the package, Sarah's looping handwriting. Defrost for dinner, the X. S. I smiled despite myself. She'd remembered. I peeled the note off, stuck it to the counter, and started the marinade. Garlic, ginger, fermented beans. The smells rose like incense. Ethan's cry floated down the hall. I wiped my hands and went to him. He was standing in the crib, cheeks flushed, hair damp with sleep sweat. Popo, he whimpered, arms up. I lifted him, felt his fevered warmth against my shoulder. Teething again. I carried him downstairs, settled him in the high chair with a cold washcloth to chew. He gnawed on it, drool pooling on the tray. Sarah appeared at 8:47, yoga mat rolled under her arm. Morning, she yawned. I'm heading to a sunrise class. Back by 10? She didn't wait for an answer, just grabbed her keys and left. The door clicked shut like a period at the end of a sentence. I stared at the empty space she'd left. Sunrise yoga on a Sunday? The studio didn't open until 9. Ethan banged his spoon. I fed him mashed banana, wiped his chin, sang him the song about the little frog. My voice sounded thin. At 9:30, Way stumbled down in boxers and bedhead. Where's Sarah? Yoga, I said. He nodded, poured coffee, kissed Ethan's head. You're magic with him, Ma. He disappeared upstairs with his laptop. I cleaned the kitchen, swept the floors, started the ribs. The house smelled of garlic and rain. At 10:15, Sarah still wasn't back. I texted Way, lunch at 12? He thumbs-upped. I set the table, folded napkins into cranes the way my mother taught me. 47. The front door opened. Sarah breezed in, hair in a perfect ponytail, cheeks glowing. No sweat, no flushed exhaustion, just glow. Class was amazing, she sang, dropping her mat by the door. Hot stone yoga. You should try it, Auntie, I smiled tightly. Maybe she didn't notice. She floated upstairs humming. Lunch was quiet. We talked about a new project. Sarah scrolled her phone under the table. Ethan threw rice. I watched her thumbs move, the secret smile tugging at her lips. When Wei asked her to pass the soy sauce, she startled, nearly dropped her phone. That afternoon, I took Ethan to the backyard to water the herbs. The basil had bolted. I pinched the flowers, let the scent burst between my fingers. Sarah was in the living room on a Zoom call, ring light blazing. I could hear her laugh, bright, performative. Ethan tugged at my skirt. I lifted him, pointed to the ladybugs on the mint. He squealed. Inside, Sarah's call ended. She stepped onto the porch, phone to her ear again, voice low. "No, he's gone all day tomorrow. Yeah, I'll leave the side gate open." She saw me, froze. "Gotta go, client." She hung up, smiled too wide. "Ethan looks happy out here." I nodded. Said nothing. That night I couldn't sleep. The ribs sat heavy in my stomach. I slipped out of bed, crept downstairs. The house was dark except for the fridge light when I opened it for water. Sarah's yoga mat still leaned against the wall, untouched since morning. No salt stains from sweat. No grass on the bottom. I touched it, dry. I stood in the dark kitchen, glass cold in my hand. The clock ticked. 2:14 a.m. I thought of the texts, the jogger, the sunrise class, the side gate. Little lies stacking like kindling. Monday morning I woke with purpose. I made Wei's favorite, century egg congee, and packed his lunch. Sarah kissed him goodbye at the door, then turned to me. "I've got errands all day. Can you handle Ethan?" "Of course," I said. She left at 9:02. I watched her car pull out, then loaded Ethan into the stroller. We walked to the park, the long way. I needed air, needed to think. At the playground, I sat on the same bench Sarah had used Saturday. Ethan played in the sand. I stared at my phone, thumb hovering. I wasn't proud of what I did next. But I opened Sarah's Instagram, public, full of filtered photos. I scrolled back. Last week, a smoothie bowl. 2 weeks, Ethan's first steps. 3 weeks, a mirror selfie in those black yoga pants captioned "sweaty and blessed." The pants were clean in the photo. No clay streak. I closed the app. My hands shook. Ethan toddled over, offered me a sticky dandelion. I took it, pressed it between my palms. The lie was growing roots. That afternoon, Sarah came home at 4:58, arms full of shopping bags. Designer names I didn't recognize. "Sale at Nordstrom," she said, breathless. Couldn't resist. She didn't offer to show me. Just floated upstairs. I bathed Ethan, read him 3 books, tucked him in. Wei came home late, kissed us both, collapsed on the couch. Sarah brought him a beer, curled against him like a cat. They laughed at something on TV. I stood in the hallway, unseen, listening to the ease between them. My son happy, my grandson safe. Was I tearing this apart over nothing? I went to my room, opened my journal. The page stared back, blank. I wrote 1 line. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize. If I'm right, I didn't finish the sentence. Tuesday, I left the house early. Told Sarah I had a dentist appointment. Instead, I sat in the coffee shop across from the yoga studio. 9:05, no Sarah. 9:30, no Sarah. At 10:12, I saw her car pull into the parking lot behind the organic grocery. She got out, looked around, then slipped through the side gate of a townhouse 3 doors down. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. I walked home slowly, the dandelion still in my pocket, wilted now. The suspicion had a name. I just wasn't ready to say it out loud. I didn't sleep that night. The ceiling fan spun lazy circles above me, pushing warm air around the room like a tired promise. My journal lay open on the nightstand, the last line glaring. If I'm right. I hadn't written anything after it. Couldn't. The words felt too heavy, like stones I wasn't ready to lift. At 5:03 a.m., I gave up. Slipped into my robe, the one with the frayed hem I kept meaning to hem, and went downstairs. The house was dark, the kind of dark that swallows sound. I made tea, chamomile, no honey, and sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around the mug for warmth. The silence pressed against my ears. I thought of Wei as a boy, how he'd crawl into my bed after nightmares, his small body trembling until I sang him back to sleep. I thought of Ethan upstairs, dreaming with his giraffe clutched tight. I thought of Sarah's laugh, the one that used to feel like sunlight, now sharp as broken glass. I decided to confront her. Not with accusations, just questions. Gentle like testing thin ice. I'd make her favorite breakfast, avocado toast with chili crisp, poached eggs, and we'd talk. Mother to daughter. I'd give her a chance to explain the yoga pants, the texts, the townhouse. Maybe there was a reason. Maybe I'd misread everything. The plan felt solid in the dark. By dawn, it was already cracking. Sarah came down at 7:12, hair in a silk bonnet, eyes still puffy. "Morning, Auntie," she mumbled, pouring coffee. Ethan's cry cut through the monitor. I started to stand, but she waved me off. "I've got him." She disappeared upstairs. I plated the toast, arranged the eggs, sprinkled sesame seeds like confetti. When they came down, Ethan in her arms, Wei trailing with his laptop bag, the table looked perfect. Sarah's eyes lit up. "This looks amazing." She buckled Ethan into his chair, kissed Wei goodbye. The door closed behind him at 7:46. It was just us. I poured her more coffee. "Sarah," I said, voice soft, "can we talk?" She looked up mid-bite. "Sure, what's up?" I took a breath. "I've noticed things, little things. The yoga pants with Clay. The late returns. The text from Jay." Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. The egg trembled, yolk threatening to spill. "I'm not accusing," I rushed. I worry. You're my daughter now. If something's wrong, I want to help." The silence stretched, thick as kanji. Sarah set her fork down, slow. Her eyes, green, flecked with gold, met mine. For a moment, I thought she'd cry. Confess. Lean into me like the girl who'd hugged me at the wedding. Instead, she laughed. Short, sharp. "Auntie, you're imagining things. Jay is Jess. She's planning a surprise for Wei's birthday. The pants. God, I spilled a mask like I said. You're being..." She trailed off, shook her head. "Paranoid." The word landed like a slap. I opened my mouth, closed it. Ethan banged his spoon, oblivious. Sarah stood, wiped her hands on a napkin. "I have a call at 8. Thanks for breakfast." She unbuckled Ethan, carried him upstairs. The nursery door clicked shut. I sat there, toast cooling, yolk congealing into a yellow eye. Paranoid. I cleaned the kitchen on autopilot. Scrubbed the pan until my knuckles stung. Folded dish towels into perfect squares. By 9:30, Sarah emerged, dressed for work. Jeans, blouse, heels that clicked like accusations. "I'll be back by 3, she said, not looking at me. "Ethan's napping." The door closed. I stood in the foyer, keys still in her hand on the console table. She'd forgotten them. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe the lie still burning my tongue. Maybe the click of those heels. I picked up the keys, her keychain a glittery initial S, and slipped them into my pocket. At 10:05, I buckled Ethan into the stroller and walked. Not to the park. To the organic grocery? To the townhouse with the side gate. The morning was crisp, leaves skittering across the sidewalk. Ethan babbled, pointing at dogs. I pushed faster. The townhouse was beige, anonymous. A bicycle leaned against the fence. I parked the stroller by the corner market, bought a coffee I didn't drink, and waited. At 10:27, Sarah's car pulled in. She got out, looked around, then slipped through the gate. No yoga mat, no water bottle, just her purse and that secret smile. My chest caved. I didn't follow. I couldn't. Ethan's laughter bubbled up, and I turned the stroller toward home, legs moving without permission. The coffee sloshed, cold now. Back at the house, I fed Ethan lunch, pureed carrots, a sippy cup of milk. He fell asleep in my arms, cheek against my collarbone. I carried him to the crib, stood there longer than necessary, watching his chest rise and fall. Sarah returned at 2:58, flushed, hair slightly mussed. "Productive day," she said, kicking off her heels. She didn't notice her keys on the console until she reached for them. "Oh, forgot these." I said nothing. That night, Wei came home early, bearing takeout from the Thai place we loved. We ate on the couch, Ethan in his walker, Sarah curled against Wei's side. She laughed at his jokes, fed him spring rolls. I watched her hands, steady, manicured, lying. After Ethan was down, I went to my room, closed the door, opened my laptop for the first time in months. Sarah's Instagram was still open from yesterday. I scrolled further back. A story highlight, girls' night, photos of cocktails, neon lights. Then one, blurry, deleted from the main feed but saved here. Sarah in a red top, arms around a man, tall, bearded, the jogger from the park. His face was turned, but I knew. I closed the laptop. The room spun. I didn't cry, not yet. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded in my lap, and listened to the house settle. Wei's laugh floated up from downstairs, Sarah's answering giggle. My son happy, my grandson innocent, and me, paranoid auntie, free housemaid, fool. I opened my journal. The page was blank after the unfinished sentence. I picked up the pen. She's lying. I saw her go in, red top. Same man. I underlined lying 3 times. Then I did something I'd never done. I opened Sarah's laptop. She'd left it charging in the living room, password the same as her phone, Ethan's birthday. I wasn't proud, but I was done being blind. Her messages were open. Jake, not Jess, not James, Jake. The thread went back months. Miss you already. Tomorrow, 10? Wei's clueless. Don't worry, you're my escape. I scrolled until my eyes burned. Photos, hotel keys, a selfie in a mirror, Sarah in the red top, Jake's hand on her waist. I closed the laptop. The screen went black, reflecting my face. Older, harder. Betrayal tasted like metal. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. Not with Wei humming in the shower, not with Ethan's soft snores down the hall. I needed proof, solid, undeniable. Tomorrow, I decided. I'd follow her again. Take photos. Show Wei. But first, I needed to hear it from her mouth. I crept downstairs, stood outside their bedroom door. It was ajar. Sarah's voice low. She's getting nosy. Thinks she's Sherlock Holmes, Wei laughed. Ma? She's just worried. You know how she is. Worried, Sarah repeated, bitter. More like controlling. I wish she'd go back to her own place. My blood froze. Wei's voice, gentle. Babe, she's family. She's helping. She's the free housemaid, Sarah hissed. That's all. The words from the nursery. Not a slip. A truth. I backed away, hand over my mouth. The stairs creaked under my weight. In my room, I locked the door for the first time since moving in. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I moved like a ghost. The kettle clicked, the rice cooker hissed, the knife slid through scallions with a whisper. I made Wei's lunch, char siu bao still warm, and packed it in the insulated bag he liked. I kissed his cheek when he left at 7:29, told him I loved him. He ruffled my hair, called me the best, and was gone. Sarah came down at 8:03, phone in hand, already typing. She wore the red top. The one from the selfie. It clung to her like a dare. Morning, she said, not looking up. I've got a brunch meeting. Back by 2? I nodded. Take your time. She left at 8:17. I waited 5 minutes, then buckled Ethan into the car seat of my old Corolla, the one I rarely drove since moving in. I followed her at a distance, heart hammering against my ribs. She turned left on Maple, then right into the same townhouse complex. Same beige building, same side gate. I parked 2 streets over, unbuckled Ethan, and carried him in the sling against my chest. He babbled, patted my cheek. I whispered, "Shh, baby. Popo's working." We walked to the corner market, bought a newspaper I didn't read, and waited. At 8:41, the front door opened. Sarah stepped out first, hair tousled, lips swollen. Jake followed, hand on the small of her back. He kissed her, slow, hungry, right there on the stoop. She laughed, pushed him playfully, then walked to her car. He watched until she drove away. I took photos. My hands shook, but the camera on my phone was steady. Click, click, click. Sarah's face clear. Jake's too. The red top wrinkled. The timestamp 8:43 a.m., Ethan started to fuss. I slipped into the market bathroom, changed his diaper on the sink counter, gave him a rice cracker. My reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger, eyes red, mouth set like I'd bitten into something sour. I drove home slowly. The photos sat in my phone like loaded guns. Sarah returned at 1:57, cheeks flushed, carrying a takeaway cup from a cafe she hadn't mentioned. "Brunch was great," she said, kicking off her shoes. "Sorry I'm early. Traffic was light." I was in the kitchen pureeing pears for Ethan. I didn't look up. "How was the red top?" I asked, voice calm. "Looks comfortable." She froze. "What?" I turned, met her eyes. "You wore it to brunch?" Her laugh came too fast. "Oh, yeah, it's new." She disappeared upstairs. I saved the photos to a hidden folder. Named it Truth. That night I cooked mapo tofu. The chili oil stained the air red. Wei came home at 6:52, tie loosened, eyes tired. Sarah greeted him with a kiss, handed him a beer. They laughed on the couch while Ethan crawled between them. I stood in the doorway, apron still on, watching the performance. After dinner I cleaned. Sarah helped by wiping one counter, then retreated to her office. Wei bathed Ethan. I dried dishes, the clink of plates loud in the silence. At 9:12, Wei knocked on my door. "Ma, you okay?" "You've been quiet." I opened the door. He stood there in pajama pants, hair damp. I wanted to pull him into my arms, tell him everything. Instead, I smiled. "Just tired, Baobei. Long day," he hugged me. "Get some rest." "Love you," I closed the door. Locked it. I opened my laptop. Created a new email address. Nothing traceable. Attached the photos. Wrote a short message. "Wei, I'm sorry. I wish I didn't have to show you this. Look at the timestamps. I love you." My hovered over send. My finger trembled. I didn't press it. Not yet. Instead, I printed the photos. 4 of them. Glossy, undeniable. I slipped them into an envelope. Wrote Wei on the front in my neat handwriting. I hid it in my journal, under the false bottom I'd sewn years ago for important papers. Then I did something reckless. I waited until the house was asleep, 11:47 p.m. by the hallway clock. I crept to the nursery. Ethan breathed soft and even. I kissed his forehead, whispered, "Popo will fix this." I went to the kitchen, opened Sarah's laptop again. This time I went to her email. Searched Jake, hundreds of messages. Hotel confirmations, love notes, a calendar invite, our place, every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 a.m. I forwarded the worst ones to my new email. Saved screenshots. My hands didn't shake anymore. At 1:03 a.m., I heard footsteps. Sarah padding to the bathroom. I closed the laptop, slipped back to my room. Locked the door. I sat on the bed, envelope in my lap. The house creaked around me. I thought of Wei's face when he saw the photos. I thought of Ethan growing up in a broken home. I thought of Sarah's laugh, free housemaid, echoing in my skull. I cried then. Silent, shoulders shaking, tears soaking the envelope. At dawn, I made a decision. I wouldn't send the email. I wouldn't give her the dignity of a confrontation. She'd called me the help. Fine. I'd stop helping, completely. Cold turkey. And I'd watch her world collapse under its own weight. I showered, dressed in my best blouse, the silk one I'd bought for Wei's graduation. I made coffee, strong and black. I sat at the kitchen table and waited. Sarah came down at 7:28, yawning. "Morning, Auntie. Ethan still asleep?" I sipped my coffee. "He's teething." "I didn't wake him." She frowned, opened the fridge. "No congee." "I didn't make any." She blinked. "Oh, okay, I'll just—" She grabbed yogurt, sat at the island. Scrolled her phone. I stood. "I'm going out." "Doctor's appointment." She looked up, surprised. "Now? But Ethan will be fine. You're his mother." I grabbed my purse, walked out. Didn't look back. I drove to the park, sat on a bench, and watched the sprinklers hiss. My phone buzzed. Sarah. "Ethan's crying. When will you be back?" I didn't reply. At 10:12, another text. I have a meeting. Can you come home? I turned my phone off. I stayed until noon. Bought a sandwich I didn't eat. Walked the lake path until my feet ached. When I returned at 2:47, the house was chaos. Ethan wailed in his playpen, face red. Dishes piled in the sink. Sarah paced, phone to her ear. I know, I'm late. Traffic. She saw me, eyes wild. Where were you? I missed my call. I hung my keys on the hook. Doctor ran long. Ethan reached for me, sobbing. I lifted him, rocked him. He quieted instantly. Sarah stared. He wouldn't stop. I tried everything. I kissed his damp hair. He missed his popo. She opened her mouth, closed it. For the first time, she looked small. I carried Ethan to the nursery, closed the door. Sat in the rocking chair, his weight grounding me. Phase 1 was done. She'd called me the maid. Now she'd learn what it meant to live without one. The first week was quiet warfare. I woke at my usual 5, but instead of the kettle, I opened my bedroom door only wide enough to listen. Sarah's alarm went off at 6:42. 3 snoozes later, she stumbled down. I heard the fridge open, close, the clatter of a single bowl. No congee, no cut fruit, no warm bottle waiting on the counter. Ethan's cry started at 7:05, thin and confused. I stayed in my room. Read the newspaper I'd bought yesterday. Drank tea from the travel mug I kept on my dresser. At 7:30, Way's footsteps thumped. He kissed Ethan, kissed Sarah, called out, "Love you, Ma." I answered from behind the door. "Have a good day, Baobei." The front door shut. Silence. At 8:03, Sarah knocked, soft, uncertain. "Auntie, Ethan needs changing. I have a call at 8:30. I opened the door a crack. "I'm not feeling well. You'll manage." I closed it again. The lock clicked like a period. I heard her hesitate, then the creak of the nursery floorboards. Ethan's cries sharpened. I sat on my bed, hands folded, and counted to 100. At 97, the crying stopped. A diaper change, a bottle. She'd figured it out. Good. I showered slowly. Dressed in the gray slacks and cardigan I wore to church. Combed my hair into its neat bun. When I emerged at 9:15, the kitchen looked like a crime scene. Formula powder dusted the counter. A onesie soaked in spit-up lay on the floor, the high chair tray sticky with banana. Sarah stood at the sink, sleeves rolled, hair escaping its ponytail. Ethan banged a plastic cup against the tray. She turned, eyes red-rimmed. I didn't know he'd need 2 bottles before 9. I poured myself more tea. Now you do. I walked past her to the living room, opened my laptop, and began answering emails I'd ignored for months. Old friends, the library book club, a cousin in Toronto asking after Ethan. Sarah's phone buzzed. She wiped her hands, answered in her bright work voice. "Yes, I'm ready." "Just 1 second." She muted, looked at me. "Can you take him?" "I'm on camera." I didn't look up. "I'm busy." She stared, mouth open. Ethan threw the cup. It clattered across the tile. She unmuted, forced a laugh. "Kids, right?" And carried the laptop upstairs, shutting the office door hard. I smiled into my tea. That afternoon, I left again. Told no one where. I drove to the senior center, played mahjong with Mrs. Chen and Mrs. Patel, let them win 2 rounds so they'd gossip less. I ate lunch there, watery wonton soup, but it was mine. I bought a new journal at the dollar store, thick pages, a lock. At 3:47, I walked home. The house smelled of burnt toast and sour milk. Ethan wailed in the playpen, face blotchy. Sarah knelt beside him, hair wild, mascara streaked. I tried to nap him, but he wouldn't. Then the bottle spilled. I stepped over a puddle of formula, lifted Ethan. He burrowed into my neck, hiccuping. Sarah reached for him. I turned away. He's overtired. I'll settle him. I carried him to the nursery, closed the door, rocked him until his breathing evened. 20 minutes. He slept. Sarah knocked once. "Way's overtime tonight. Can you make dinner?" I opened the door. "I'm not hungry. There's rice in the cooker. Vegetables in the fridge." I closed it again. I heard her cry in the shower. Thin, angry sobs that echoed off the tiles. I didn't flinch. Day 2, I varied the routine. I cooked for myself only, a single egg, toast, half a grapefruit. I ate at the table, newspaper spread, classical music low on the radio. Sarah came down at 7:51, still in pajamas. No coffee? I drank the last of it. She stared at the empty carafe, then at the dishes from last night, still in the sink. Ethan started crying upstairs. She ran. I left at 9 Mom for the library. Returned at noon with a stack of books and a new library card in my name only. The kitchen was worse, a pot of congee boiled dry, black at the bottom. Sarah sat on the floor, Ethan in her lap, both of them crying. She looked up, eyes swollen. I burned it. I don't know how to use the rice cooker settings. I stepped around them, put my books on the counter. Read the manual. She laughed, a broken sound. You think this is funny? I met her eyes. I think you called me the free housemaid. I'm simply off duty, her face crumpled. She gathered Ethan, fled upstairs. I scraped the burnt pot, filled it with water to soak. Then I went to the backyard, sat on the porch swing, and read my new novel. The basil had wilted. I didn't water it. Day 3, Way noticed. He came home at 6:12, tie askew, takeout bags in hand. Ma, the house! He stopped in the doorway, taking in the chaos. Laundry mountain on the couch, toys everywhere, dishes towering. Sarah sat at the island, laptop open, hair in a greasy knot, Ethan asleep against her chest. Way kissed her forehead. Babe, what happened? Sarah's voice cracked. She's not helping at all. I have deadlines. Way looked at me standing by the fridge. Ma? I folded my arms. I'm tired, Way. I've been tired for 18 months. He blinked. But, Ethan, his mother is home all day. I gestured to Sarah. She's capable. Sarah's eyes flashed. I have a job. So do I said quietly. It's called retirement. Way opened his mouth, closed it. He set the takeout down, started unpacking. Let's eat. We'll talk after. We ate in silence. Ethan woke, banged his spoon. Sarah fed him mechanically. I cleared only my plate. After, Way cornered me in the hallway. Ma, please. She's drowning. I touched his cheek. Then teach her to swim. I went to my room. Locked the door. That night I wrote in the new journal, Day 3. She burned rice again. Ethan cried for 40 minutes. Way confused. I feel nothing. I underlined nothing twice. Day 4 broke with a storm. Rain lashed the windows like thrown gravel. I woke to the sound of Ethan screaming at 5:47, ear-splitting, desperate. Sarah's voice followed, hoarse and panicked. I don't know what's wrong. Shh, baby, please. The monitor glowed red. I turned it off, rolled over, and slept another hour. When I came down at 7:15, the kitchen was a war zone. Formula powder snowed across the counter. A bottle lay on its side, milk pooling. Ethan sat in the high chair, face purple, fists clenched. Sarah stood over him in yesterday's clothes, hair a bird's nest, eyes wild. He won't stop, she choked. I changed him, fed him, rocked him. I poured tea. Maybe he misses routine, she stared. You're enjoying this, I sipped. I'm resting. Way appeared at 7:28, unshaven, shirt wrinkled. He took one look and scooped Ethan up. The crying eased to hiccups against his shoulder. Babe, go shower. I've got him. Sarah fled. We turned to me, voice low. Ma, we need to talk tonight. This isn't fair to Ethan. I met his eyes. Fair is a two-way street, Way. He opened his mouth, closed it. Kissed Ethan's head and carried him upstairs. I left at 8:30, drove to the Asian supermarket, bought ingredients for myself only. Pork belly, fresh noodles, a single bunch of Gai Lan. I lingered in the tea aisle, read labels, let the rain drum the roof. At 10:12, my phone buzzed. Sarah. Ethan threw up. What do I do? I didn't reply. I returned at 11:47. The house smelled of sour milk and panic. Ethan lay on a blanket in the living room, pale, thumb in mouth. Sarah knelt beside him, phone to her ear. Yes, pediatrician? He's warm, 100.8. She saw me, eyes pleading. Auntie, please. I set my groceries down. Call Way. He's the father. She burst into tears. He's in meetings all day. Then take him yourself. I walked past, unpacked my bags. She followed, voice cracking. You're punishing me. I turned. I'm teaching you. She stared, tears streaking mascara. For what? I said nothing. Went to my room, closed the door. At 1:03, I heard the front door slam. Car engine, silence. I came down at 2:15. The house was empty. A note on the counter in Sarah's handwriting. Took Ethan to urgent care. Don't know when we're back. The pediatrician's card was clipped to it. I cleaned nothing. Made myself noodle soup, ate at the table with the radio on. Chopin. The rain softened to a whisper. They returned at 4:58. Ethan asleep in his car seat, flushed but breathing steady. Sarah's eyes were swollen, hair under a baseball cap. She unbuckled him, carried him upstairs without a word. Way's car pulled in at 5:12. He came straight to the kitchen, face thunderous. Ma, living room. Now. I followed. Sarah sat on the couch, Ethan in her lap, a pediatrician's printout clutched in her hand. Way paced. Ear infection, Sarah said, voice flat. Antibiotics. He'll be fine, she looked at me. He needed you. I sat opposite. He needed his mother to notice he was sick at 5 a.m. Way stopped pacing. Enough, both of you. Ma, you've made your point. Sarah's struggling. Help her. Sarah's head snapped up. Struggling? I'm drowning because she quit cold. I folded my hands. You called me the free housemaid. I'm simply tired. Way's face crumpled. Ma, please. Sarah stood, Ethan stirring. You want me to say it? Fine, I was wrong. I took you for granted. Happy? Her voice broke. But Ethan shouldn't suffer. I looked at my grandson, fever flushed, trusting. My resolve cracked, just a hairline. I'll help with Ethan, I said slowly. Only Ethan. Bottles, diapers, naps. You handle the rest. Cooking, cleaning, your job. All of it. Sarah opened her mouth to argue. Way cut in. Deal. Thank you, Ma. I nodded once. Went to the nursery, warmed a bottle, settled Ethan against me. He drank greedily, eyes fluttering shut. Sarah watched from the doorway, arms wrapped around herself. That night, I cooked for Ethan only. Oatmeal, mashed pear. I left the kitchen as I found it. Sarah ordered pizza. Way ate in silence. Day 5, I stuck to the agreement. I changed Ethan at 6 a.m., rocked him when he fussed, sang him to sleep. I ignored the dishes, the laundry avalanche, the milk rings on the table. Sarah stumbled through breakfast, burnt toast, cold coffee. She missed a client call because Ethan spit up on her blouse mid-Zoom. She cried in the bathroom. I heard her through the vent. Way texted at noon. Can we talk tonight? Family meeting, I replied, after Ethan's asleep. At 8:03 p.m., Ethan down, we sat in the living room. Pizza box on the coffee table, grease staining the cardboard. Sarah's eyes were bloodshot. Y looked 10 years older. Ma, he started. Sarah's sorry. She'll do better. But we need you. All of us, Sarah nodded, voice small. I was awful. I see it now. Please come back to how it was. I leaned forward. It will never be how it was. But I'll stay, for Ethan. New rules. I listed them calm and clear. I care for Ethan only. You parent him the rest of the time. I cook for myself and Ethan. You feed yourselves. I clean only what I use. Respect. No more names behind my back. 1 month. If you can't manage, I leave. Permanently. Sarah's mouth opened, closed. Way rubbed his temples. Ma, that's harsh. It's fair, I said. You wanted a wife and mother. Be them. Silence stretched. Rain tapped the windows again. Sarah spoke first, voice trembling. Okay, 1 month. Way nodded slowly. Okay, I stood. Then we start tomorrow. I went to my room. Locked the door. Opened the new journal, day 5. They agreed. Ethan slept through the night. I feel lighter. I underlined lighter once. The action wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. I was no longer the maid. I was the boundary. The 1-month clock started ticking the next morning, and the house settled into a brittle new rhythm. I rose at 5, made Ethan's bottle, and rocked him in the nursery while the sky turned pearl gray. I spoke to him in Cantonese, soft lullabies about moon rabbits and paper boats. When he dozed off again, I laid him in the crib and went to my room. I did not go to the kitchen. I did not start the rice cooker. I did not wipe counters that weren't mine. At 6:58, Sarah's alarm shrieked. I heard her groan, the slap of her hand on the nightstand, the shuffle of feet. Ethan stirred but didn't wake. I left at 7:22 without his usual kiss on my cheek. He paused outside my door, hesitated, then thought better of it. The front door closed with a soft click. Sarah appeared in the nursery at 7:41, hair in a messy knot, yesterday's mascara smudged. She lifted Ethan, who blinked at her like she was a stranger. "Morning, baby," she whispered, voice cracking. She carried him downstairs. I followed at a distance, curious but silent. The kitchen was a museum of neglect, pizza box still open, congealed cheese hardened into amber, a sippy cup tipped over, milk souring in a white puddle, laundry spilling from the mudroom like a fabric avalanche. Sarah stared at it, Ethan on her hip and her shoulders sagged. She set him in the high chair, warmed a bottle with shaking hands, tested it on her wrist the way I'd shown her 100 times. Ethan drank, eyes on her face. She managed a wobbly smile. Good boy. I poured tea into my travel mug and left for the senior center. Mahjong at 9. I didn't look back. By the time I returned at 11:30, Sarah had wrestled the kitchen into a fragile order. Dishes stacked in the drainer, counters wiped with a damp paper towel, pizza box folded and in the outside bin. She was on a Zoom call in the living room, ring light harsh on her tired face, Ethan in a bouncer at her feet gnawing a teething ring. She muted herself when she saw me. He napped for 20 minutes. I have another call at noon. I nodded, went to the nursery, and closed the door. Ethan's laundry basket was overflowing. I washed only his onesies, hung them on the small drying rack. The rest, Sarah's silk blouses, Way's dress shirts, stayed heaped. That afternoon, the first ripple reached the outside world. Sarah's mother, Linda, FaceTimed at 2:17. I heard the ringtone from the hallway, cheerful ukulele. Sarah answered in the office, door ajar. Hi, Mom. No, everything's fine. Yes, Ethan's great. Her voice thinned. Actually, Auntie's taking a break. Helping less. It's an adjustment, a pause. Linda's voice, tinny. A break? She lives there. Sarah's laugh cracked. It's complicated. I'll call you later. The call ended. Sarah emerged, eyes glassy. She saw me in the nursery doorway and flinched. That evening, Way came home at 6:03 with grocery bags. No takeout. I'll cook, he announced too loud. He made spaghetti, overcooked the pasta, burned the garlic bread. We ate at the table, Ethan in his high chair smearing sauce on his cheeks. Sarah picked at her plate. I finished my small bowl of congee and steamed bok choy, cooked for Ethan and myself only, and cleared my dishes. Way tried small talk. Work okay? Sarah shrugged. Missed a deadline. Client rescheduled. He reached for her hand. She let him hold it, but her fingers were limp. After Ethan was down, Way knocked on my door. Ma, Sarah's cousin, saw the house on FaceTime. Word's spreading. People think we're fighting. I opened the door. Are you? He rubbed his neck. Not fighting, just stretched. Then stretch, I said, and closed the door. Day 8. The ripple became a wave. Sarah's best friend, Jess, dropped by unannounced at 10:12 with a latte and a sympathetic smile. I was in the backyard pruning the basil, mine now, officially. I heard the front door, Jess's bright voice. Oh my God, Sarah, what happened? It looks like a tornado hit. Sarah's reply was muffled, tearful. I kept pruning. Jess stayed an hour. When she left, she hugged Sarah on the porch. Call if you need anything, seriously. Her eyes flicked to me through the window. I waved with my garden shears. That night, Way's cousin May texted the family group chat, heard Sarah's struggling. Everything okay? Y replied with a thumbs up. No one asked me directly. Day 12, the consequence went public in earnest. Sarah had a virtual pitch for a big client, some wellness brand. She'd prepped for days, ring light positioned, backdrop perfect. At 10:57, Ethan, teething, feverish again, began screaming. Sarah tried to soothe him off camera, but the mic caught every wail. The client muted, embarrassed. Sarah ended the call early, face in her hands. By noon, she was on the phone with her boss, voice shaking. I know, family emergency. Yes, I'll make it up. I rocked Ethan in the nursery, humming. He fell asleep against my shoulder. That evening, Linda arrived without warning, suitcase in tow. I'm staying a few days, she announced, kissing Wei, hugging Sarah tight. She took one look at the house and pursed her lips. We're fixing this, she cooked. Oversalted chicken, lumpy mashed potatoes. I ate my own stir-fry in my room. Linda cornered me in the hallway. Mailing whatever this is, Ethan needs stability, I smiled politely. He has his mother, Linda's eyes narrowed. You're being cruel. No, I said. I'm being clear. She left after 2 days. Muttering about stubborn old women. The public tide turned faster than I expected. By day 15, the house had become a rumor mill's favorite exhibit. Sarah's Instagram, once a curated shrine of smoothie bowls and were boss babe captions, went dark for 3 days. When she posted again, it was a single story. A blurry photo of Ethan's chubby hand clutching a teething ring, captioned, Hard Days, Big Love. The comments flooded with heart emojis and private messages. You okay, girl? DM me? Prayers. She didn't reply to any. Wei's co-workers noticed too. He came home at 5:47 one evening, tie abandoned in the car, eyes hollow. HR asked if everything's all right at home, he said, voice flat. Someone saw Sarah crying in the parking lot of urgent care. He looked at me, pleading. Ma, can't we just— No, I said, folding Ethan's tiny socks. We're halfway through the month. He rubbed his face. People think we're falling apart. Then stop performing, I replied. Start parenting. That night, the family group chat exploded. Wei's auntie in Vancouver posted a voice note. Wei, your mother is proud, but pride doesn't change diapers. Call me. His cousin May added a crying emoji. Sarah's sister texted her separately. Mom says you look exhausted on FaceTime. Do you need me to fly in? Sarah read it, deleted it, didn't answer. Day 18, the consequence cracked open in daylight. Sarah had a lunch meeting downtown, her first in-person client pitch since the chaos began. She'd spent the morning ironing a blouse, curling her hair, practicing smiles in the mirror. At 11:03, Ethan spiked a fever again, 102.4. She called the pediatrician, voice trembling. Yes, I can bring him now. She looked at me, eyes wet. Auntie, please, I'll watch him, I said. You go to your meeting. She hesitated, torn. The clock ticked. She kissed Ethan's hot forehead, whispered, Mommy loves you, and left at 11:17, heels clicking like gunshots. I gave Ethan Tylenol, rocked him, sang until he dozed. At 12:42, Sarah texted, Pitch went amazing. They loved the rebrand. A selfie followed. Her in the restaurant bathroom, smile too wide, eyes glassy. At 1:58, the pediatrician's office called the house phone. Mrs. Tan? Ethan's fever broke. He's sleeping. You can pick him up any time. Sarah had given them my number as backup. I bundled Ethan into the car seat, drove to the clinic. The nurse handed him over with a sympathetic smile. Poor little guy. Mom seemed overwhelmed on the phone. I nodded. She's learning. Back home, I laid Ethan in his crib. He slept hard, thumb in mouth. I made myself tea, sat on the porch, and waited. Sarah returned at 3:12, triumphant, takeout coffee in hand. She froze in the doorway when she saw me. Where's Ethan? Napping. Fever broke at the doctor. Her face crumpled. You took him? You had your meeting. She dropped her purse, sank to the floor, and cried. Ugly, heaving sobs that shook her whole body. I didn't move to comfort her. I sipped my tea. That evening, Wei came home to find Sarah curled on the couch, eyes swollen. Ethan played quietly with blocks at her feet. We looked from her to me, then back. What happened? Sarah's voice was raw. I missed his appointment. I chose work. Wei knelt, pulled her into his arms. She clung to him like a child. I stood, went to the kitchen, and started Ethan's dinner. Plain rice porridge. Nothing for them. The final crack came on day 21. Sarah's biggest client, the wellness brand, canceled the contract. An email at 9:07 a.m. We've decided to go in another direction. Best of luck. She read it in the living room, laptop open, Ethan in her lap. She didn't cry. She just closed the lid and stared at the wall. At 10:12, Jess arrived again, this time with a casserole and a tight hug. Everyone's talking, she whispered. The mommy groups, the influencers, people are saying you're spiraling. Sarah laughed, a hollow sound. Let them. By noon, the casserole was untouched. Sarah sat on the floor with Ethan, building block towers and knocking them down. She didn't check her phone. Didn't open her laptop. When Wei came home early at 4:03, she was still there, hair unbrushed, singing softly to their son. Wei watched from the doorway, eyes soft. Babe? She looked up. I quit. He blinked. What? My job. I sent the email. I'm done. Silence stretched. Ethan knocked over another tower, giggled. Wei crossed the room, sat beside her. You sure? She nodded, tears falling. I chose wrong. Over and over. I see it now. I stood in the hallway, unseen, tea cooling in my hand. The public consequence had done its work, not in gossip or canceled contracts, but in the quiet collapse of her illusions. That night, the house was clean. Sarah had done it. Dishes washed, laundry folded, floors swept. She cooked, simple stir-fried vegetables, rice from the cooker she'd finally mastered. We ate together. No one spoke of the month. No one needed to. After Ethan was down, Sarah knocked on my door. I opened it. She stood there in pajamas, hair damp from a shower, face bare. I was cruel, she said. I used you. I'm sorry, I studied her, really looked. The arrogance was gone. Only exhaustion and something like humility remained. I nodded. I know, she swallowed. Will you stay? For Ethan, I said. And for you, if you mean it. She stepped forward, hugged me, tentative, then tight. I let her. My arms came up slowly, rested on her back. She smelled of baby shampoo and regret. The public had judged. The consequence had landed. Now the healing could begin. The morning after Sarah quit her job, the house woke to birdsong instead of alarms. I rose at 5:30, opened my bedroom door and paused. The hallway smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, Sarah's doing late into the night. The laundry basket by the stairs was empty. A new quiet had settled, fragile but real. I padded downstairs. The kitchen counter gleamed. A single sticky note on the fridge, Sarah's handwriting. Thank you for the rice cooker lesson. I touched it, then started the kettle for myself. No kanji, no bottles, just tea. At 6:47, Ethan's soft babble floated through the monitor. I went to him. He stood in the crib, hair wild, arms up. Popo! I lifted him, kissed his warm cheek. He smelled of sleep and baby powder. We rocked in the nursery chair, sunlight striping the floor. I sang the Moon Rabbit song. He patted my face, eyes bright. Sarah appeared in the doorway at 7:03, robe cinched, hair in a loose braid. She watched us, eyes soft. I can take him, she whispered. I stood, handed him over. He's all yours. She took him, settled into the rocker. Ethan nestled against her, thumb in mouth. She began to hum, my lullaby, off-key but earnest. I left them there. Downstairs I made toast and a single boiled egg. Ate at the table with the newspaper. Wei came down at 7:29, tie in hand. He paused when he saw me alone. Morning, Ma. He kissed my forehead, poured coffee, then hesitated. Sarah up? With Ethan. He nodded, relief flickering across his face. He left at 7:41. Sarah came down at 8:12, Ethan on her hip, both of them dressed. She'd brushed his hair, changed him into the yellow duck overalls I'd sewn. We're going to the park, she said. Want to come? I folded the newspaper. I have mahjong at 9, she smiled, small, real. Okay. They left at 8:27. I heard the stroller wheels on the driveway, Ethan's happy squeal. I finished my tea, washed my cup, and left for the senior center. The day unfolded gently. At mahjong, Mrs. Chen asked after Ethan. I showed her a photo, Sarah pushing him on the swing, both laughing. Mrs. Chen squeezed my hand. Good boy. Good mama. I returned at 11:58. The house was quiet. A new note on the counter. Made extra congee. In the fridge if you want. I opened the lid, plain with a drizzle of sesame oil. I heated a small bowl, ate it standing up. It tasted like apology. Afternoon I gardened. The basil had revived. I pinched leaves, inhaled their peppery scent. Sarah and Ethan came back at 2:03, cheeks pink from sun. Ethan reached for me. I took him, kissed his salty forehead. Sarah unloaded the stroller. Library books, a bag of apples, a new board book about trucks. I got this for him, she said, holding up the book. Thought we could read together tonight. I nodded. He likes the page with the fire engine. She smiled, eyes crinkling. I remember. That evening, Wei came home at 5:47 with grocery bags. Sarah met him at the door, kissed him, took a bag. They cooked together, chopping, stirring, laughing when the garlic burned. I fed Ethan mashed sweet potato in the high chair, wiped his chin. The kitchen filled with ginger and soy. We ate at 6:30. Sarah had made Hainanese chicken rice, my recipe, but lighter on the oil. Wei groaned with pleasure. Babe, this is amazing! Ethan banged his spoon. I ate slowly, savoring the balance of flavors. After, Sarah bathed Ethan while Wei cleaned the kitchen. I folded the clean onesies from the dryer, only Ethan's. Sarah's and Wei's clothes stayed in baskets. She didn't ask me to help. I didn't offer. At 7:45, story time. Sarah sat in the rocker, Ethan in her lap, the truck book open. We leaned in the doorway. I stood behind them, hand on the crib rail. Sarah read with voices, deep for the dump truck, high for the ambulance. Ethan giggled, pointed. When she finished, he clapped. She kissed his head, passed him to Wei for bedtime song. I went to my room. Left the door unlocked. At 9:12, a soft knock. Sarah. I opened. She held 2 mugs of chrysanthemum tea. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She entered, handed me a mug, sat on the edge of my bed. The room smelled of her lavender lotion. I start therapy tomorrow, she said. Online, to work on everything, I sipped. Good. She traced the rim of her mug. I told my mom the truth. About Jake, about using you. She cried. Said I was selfish. A tear slipped. She's right. I set my mug down. You were lost. Now you're finding your way, she looked up. Will you forgive me? I studied her, bare face, eyes earnest. I already have. But trust is earned daily, she nodded. I know, we drank in silence. Outside, crickets chirped, she stood. Thank you, Auntie. I touched her arm. Thank you for trying, she left. I locked the door out of habit, then unlocked it again. In my journal, day 22. She cooked. Read to Ethan, cried in my room. I forgave. Healing starts. I underlined healing once. The last week of the month arrived like a held breath finally released. I still cooked only for Ethan and myself, but Sarah began leaving portions on the stove with a sticky note. Extra if you're hungry. I ate them sometimes. The congee improved. She learned to rinse the rice twice, to let it simmer low. She never asked if I liked it. She just did it. Mornings became a quiet dance. I woke Ethan at 6:30, changed him, sang him awake. Sarah appeared at 6:45 with warm bottles she'd prepped the night before. We passed him between us like a relay. No words, just the soft transfer of his weight. By 7:15, Wei was gone, and Sarah pushed the stroller to the park or the library while I went to the senior center or the market alone. I bought chrysanthemum flowers for my room. She bought storybooks with cardboard pages. One afternoon, day 26, I came home to find Sarah on the living room floor, Ethan asleep against her chest, a half-finished puzzle spread before them. She looked up, eyes soft. He said mama clear as day. Pointed at me. I hung my keys. He's always known. She smiled, tears brimming. I didn't. I sat opposite, picked up a puzzle piece, a yellow duck. I fitted it into place. We finished the puzzle in silence, Ethan's breath warm between us. That evening, Wei cooked, his mother's braised pork, the one I taught him when he was 12. The kitchen smelled of star anise and soy. Sarah set the table, cloth napkins folded into cranes. I carried Ethan's high chair. We ate slowly, passing dishes, laughing when Ethan smeared sauce on Wei's shirt. After, Sarah washed, Wei dried, I wiped Ethan's hands. The dishwasher hummed like a lullaby. At 8:03, Sarah knocked on my door. Family meeting? I followed her to the living room. We sat on the couch, Ethan already asleep upstairs. Sarah held a small notebook. She cleared her throat. The month is almost up. I want to say what I've learned. Wei took her hand. I sat in the armchair, hands folded. Sarah opened the notebook. Her voice shook but didn't break. I took you for granted. You were the spine of this house and I treated you like furniture. I lied to myself. I thought work defined me. Ethan defines me. Wei defines me. You define me, I hurt people I love. Jake is blocked, deleted, gone. I can do hard things. Burnt rice, 3 a.m. fevers, therapy at noon. I'm still standing, I want you to stay. Not as help, as family. With rules that honor all of us. She closed the notebook. Your turn. We spoke first. I was blind. I let Ma carry everything so I could chase promotions. I'm cutting hours. Home by 6. No more overtime. I looked at them. My son, tired but clear-eyed. My daughter-in-law, raw but steady. The room smelled of pork and lemon cleaner and hope. I spoke slowly. I stayed for Ethan. I will stay for all of you if we build something new. Equal shares, equal voices. No more invisible women, Sarah nodded. Equal. Wei squeezed her hand. Equal. We wrote the new rules on a single sheet. Taped it to the fridge. Sarah. Mornings with Ethan. Meals, housework rotation, or evenings with Ethan. Grocery runs, laundry on weekends. Auntie, Ethan when needed. Cooking when I want. My own time sacred, all of us. Sunday dinners, no phones. Therapy for Sarah. Date nights for Wei and Sarah. Mahjong for Auntie. We signed it like a treaty. Ethan's footprint in purple paint at the bottom. Sarah's idea. The last night of the month, Sarah cooked alone. Mapo tofu, not too spicy, with extra minced pork the way Ethan liked. I set the table. Wei bathed the baby. We ate at 6:30 sharp. After, Sarah brought out a small cake from the bakery, plain sponge, fresh strawberries. A single candle. For new beginnings, she said. We blew it out together. Ethan clapped sticky hands. Later, I tucked Ethan in. Sarah lingered in the doorway. Will you sing the Moon Rabbit song? I sang. She hummed harmony, off-key but sure. Ethan's eyes fluttered shut. In my room, I opened the new journal. The last entry, day 30, they cooked. They cried. They signed, I stayed. We are family. Not perfect, but whole. I underlined whole 3 times. I left the door unlocked. The next morning, the sticky note on the fridge read, Kanji's on. Extra sesame oil. Love S. I ate 2 bowls. Healing wasn't a moment. It was 1,000 small choices. Burnt toast forgiven, dishes shared, lullabies in 2 voices. It was Sarah's tired smile when Ethan said "Popo" and reached for us both. It was Wei coming home at 5:58 with flowers for no reason. It was me pruning the basil while Sarah pushed the stroller past the window waving. It was enough. I still keep that treaty on the fridge, the purple footprint faded now but never smudged. Ethan is 3, running instead of crawling, calling us both Mama and Popo in the same breath. Sarah works part-time from home, her ring light retired to the attic. Wei makes Saturday pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. I still play mahjong on Tuesdays, still garden, still lock my door when I need the quiet. But most nights it stays open. Some evenings, when the dishes are done and Ethan is asleep, Sarah brings 2 mugs of chrysanthemum tea to my room. We sit on the bed like old friends, talking about nothing and everything. Her therapy breakthroughs, Way's new promotion with better hours, the basil that finally outgrew its pot. She no longer flinches when I correct her knife grip. I no longer flinch when she forgets to rinse the rice. I learned something in that long, hard month. Respect isn't demanded. It's built one honest choice at a time. I could have walked away with my suitcases and my pride. Instead, I stayed and watched a family rebuild itself from the ground up. Sarah learned to mother without a safety net. We learned to father without excuses. And I learned that love sometimes looks like a burnt pot of congee and a sticky note that says I'm trying. The house smells of ginger and baby shampoo, and the faint lemon cleaner Sarah still uses. The laundry is folded, the dishes shared, the nights quiet. We are not perfect. We are better. So here's my question to you, dear listener. If someone you loved called you the help behind your back, would you have stayed silent and stepped away, or would you have spoken up sooner? Would you have waited for the crash, or built the bridge before it burned? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. And if this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear that respect is a two-way street. And that family, real family, is worth the hard, humble work of healing. Thank you for sitting with me tonight. Until next time, this is Auntie Noni signing off.